All right, so as you guys seen in last episode, we pulled the Superduke motor out of the 2021 Superduke. The episode before, we basically stripped down this RC8R. So in this episode, we're excited. This is the one we've been waiting for, guys. We get to mock up the Superduke engine in the RC8R frame. Stay tuned. First things first, as you guys seen in last episode and what I kind of explained, we were able to pull this motor out of that frame without even having to remove the cooling system, radiator, coolant, all that jazz. So what I'm gonna do just to make it easier on myself, and if we have to make any kind of modifications, special brackets, things like that, first things first, I am gonna tear all this stuff off, the wiring harness, radiator, drain the coolant, basically get it to a bare block like what we have with the 1190 RC8 engine over there. And then we can start mocking it up and see if it's gonna fit. Now I do wanna tell you something. Off camera, I pulled out the micrometer and I took some measurements. Everything from the fuel pump and the Superduke compared to the RC8 down to the motor mounts. I don't know if you can see them really here, but what's super cool, what KTM did is basically an LC8 is an LC8, and all they really changed was these black brackets, and then it bolts to the frame there. So of course, these are different from the RC8. Let me get you a better shot. You can see that bracket down in there, and that's where it would bolt to the frame, but this bracket is removable from the cylinder heads. So if we look over here on the RC8R, you can see this is the right side of the engine, but you see how that bracket bolts to the motor? And then that bolt right there is where it bolts to the frame. I measured these from point to point on the bolt spacing, and you're not gonna believe it. They are exactly the same. Like KTM, literally their evolution of flagship motorcycle, top of the line bike they built, they quit making a sport bike and started making the Superduke in 2015. But it's almost like taking this whole bike apart, we've been able to see their evolution of changing what's already good, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they've just kept going with the same setup pretty much. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but guys, I think this might just bolt right in if we change the bracketry. So enough waffling. Let me go ahead and break this engine down. All right, that was super quick, easy uninstallation. So now what I'm gonna do, yes guys, she is ready. So I am gonna put the engine on a jack, kind of get it underneath there, but I wanna show you guys what I'm shooting for. This here, that back bolt is also the swing arm pivot bolt. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a micrometer and I'm gonna measure that bolt there, the one on the RC8R, and then I'm gonna measure the one off of the Superduke, sorry about the focus, the one off the Superduke, and try to reuse the Superduke one. So let me measure this real quick, and then let's get this motor in, guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out.
All right, I got the rear shock out. Yes, they are the same size swing arm pivot engine bolt, but I'm just gonna go with my gut here. I've measured these and I can tell that the Superduke brackets aren't gonna fit in this frame. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take these off and put the RC8 mounts where these are. I'm gonna swap those left and right side, Let's just see if it fits up. You guys are not gonna believe this. As expected, fit. Bolted right up, no problem. And look, it's like the clearance, you can't even see it. There's a little spacer back there, but there's probably a millimeter. Let me see if I can focus for you. There's probably a millimeter right there in between that and that servo for the throttle bodies. Crazy. No fitment issues on this side. Now we've run into our first problem. As you can see, I have the smog block off taken off. I just have the hose stay in there because block offs are easy. It's a very inexpensive part. You can see, I pulled it off on the right side, but the issue we were having is on the 3rd gen, you have like this box. Let me show you. See that box down there? It's like a whole solenoid everything. So I removed that because it was kind of interfering with the frame. Now, our first issue, I don't know if you can really tell, but that coolant hose that runs from the right side of the motor to the left side, it's supposed to bend, but it's not supposed to bend this much. Now, honestly, I can feel it in the back. It is not kinked. We could run it like that, but what I'm gonna try to do is when we do our final install, I may trim up that hose a little bit and, make it to where it doesn't kink up against that bracket, or possibly have it come out and around the bracket so there's no tension, no binds, no nothing like that. But guys, that's the RC8R engine brackets. I think this is gonna bolt right up. So let's get the swing arm bolt out and let's grab the jack and put this in the frame. It's gonna be hard for me to film and try to do this. So unfortunately, I will put it on time lapse, and then once we see it in the bike, or if you see me fail in a sped up video, I'll go ahead and bring you guys back into it and explain.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see.
The rear swing arm bolt is in. And it's almost like KTM designed this motor for this frame. So now what I have to do is, as you can see, the frame bolt's all the way down there, and I actually had to do this on the 1190 RC8 motor as well, but you see the dipstick? If I go straight down with this, the inside piece of this frame will shear that right off. This heavy steel will definitely win in this plastic battle. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this dipstick, plug that hole, so we've got an easy route going straight down.
I'm feeling fearless. Exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step.
Well, guys, our RC8R has a Duke 1290 engine under its own weight. Now, I will tell you, now these bolts are extra long because these had frame sliders on the bikes, so I'll get the correct size bolts before we final bolt it. Rear fit up no problem, but as you can see, we didn't get quite lucky enough on the RC8, engine mounts. It was probably 2 mil off, but the biggest thing is this is an undersized hole, like it's literally tight fit for that engine bolt. So I was able to ream it out to 5/8. and get it to be offset that 1.5 mil that we needed to get it to fit up perfect. So now it is literally bolted and clears everything. Now, one of the biggest things is they said you're gonna have issues with the hoses, but I wanna show you, even if I run this through like this, it's almost like they made this damn frame to fit this engine. Look, even on this side, look at that. It fit right around it. Like, dude, we got a Superduke engine in an RC8R, the 3rd gen. Like, it bolted right up with those brackets. Now what I wanna do, because it's a little lumpy in the back because I removed the shock so we didn't scratch anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that stock shock back in here and get it up on the lift. She is in, people. Dude, no way. I mean, I assumed after going through 2 different, or should I say 4 different generations, because it's been that long since this bike was out, but going through all of the KTM engineering, I can't even believe. It's almost like Easter eggs. You know what I mean? Like KTM's like, hey, if you guys ever want to have our most modern day bike and a fully fared sport bike, just buy you a Superduke and an RC8R frame, and they bolt right up. Dude, this is crazy. This is crazy, guys. Look. It's literally, don't worry about that. That was from the crash. We will order a new engine case cover, but dude, this thing is in. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. We got the 1290 motor in there. As you've seen, it just went in almost too smooth, but we have the bolts in perfectly right here where we shimmed it just a tad perfectly. The swing arm pivot on the right side, let me show you. On the right side, you can see we have all of our bolts done correctly. So now let's talk about a few things that we know we're gonna have to do. A few hurdles we're gonna have to overcome. The RC8R brackets that we used, the engine brackets right here, absolutely perfect. It made this a direct swap and realistically no modifications needed. But as you can see, the hose, I can't really get in there, but my finger is basically right about there. So it's not that it's kinked, but I would just like to find a way to relieve that a little bit. So I'm gonna look for maybe a longer hose, run it around here and through there, or I'll put basically pressure on this and see if it collapses on itself. If it doesn't, we might not even have to touch it. And then onto the other side, and on this side, there's really not that much we're gonna have to modify. You can see these radiator hoses, they fit perfectly. I mean, we're not gonna know until we do our final mock-up on the radiator where we can see if we're gonna end up using these mounts or a different style setup. But even on the other side, the right side radiator hose is plenty of room, nice and flexible, no kinks, no binds, no nothing. So that being said, I don't want you to think that this swap is not gonna have any obstacles, because I have done some measuring and test fitting off camera. I'll give you a little hint. I did test the other front forks. There's a reason that this is still on the bike. Hint, hint. We'll go in further in the next episode. Things like the exhaust, we're gonna have to custom make a bunch of stuff on this. So in next episode, you can already see that the tank is on it. As you can see, there's a whole lot of empty space underneath the tank to the top of the throttle bodies. So we get to design and make an air box. So next video, I'm gonna show you guys literally how to make your own air box from absolutely nothing at all besides measurements and a vision. We're gonna design that in 360 Fusion and then create an actual part out of a 3D printed part that we can mock up and prototype on the bike. So thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate the thumbs up, all of the good feedback we're getting from this build. We'll see you on the next one.